My life living and being born in Asia versus unconventionally moving to the other side of the world were all but a smooth run for me. You see, I was born in Singapore and I lived there for about 8 whole years. My whole entire life was set in the world of Singapore. I had great friends, I was participating in a bunch of school activities that made me really feel happy. And so when I first received the news that I'd be moving, I felt like everything I had control of, was just being taken away from me. And keep in mind, I was 8 years old. And so the name of the place was California. It was where Los Angeles was located, where famous movies would be set, like The Avengers. But never would I be thought that I was destined for moving and living in a place with fancy celebrities. And I really wasn't ready for what was coming next. And so when I first moved to the world of America, right off the bat, I walked out the airport and I was already disgusted at the smell of pollution, cars honking, babies screaming, talking over the telecoms. I just wanted to get out of there ASAP. And as just an 8-year-old, chaos terrified me, and I wanted to go back home to my comfort home in Singapore as soon as I could. And so moving into an apartment, it wasn't as bad as I thought. As promised, I got my own room, which I was super pumped about. But because of the first few days and the jet lag, I slept my way through them. And just like that, summer was gone. And this was something I completely dreaded. I had no idea what I was gonna put myself through, and in no way I wanted to go to school at all. In no way was I gonna be outside of the box and outside of my comfort zone and being surrounded with a bunch of kids that I didn't even familiarize myself with, and I just knew I wouldn't be comfortable with. And going to school, I was just dead afraid, but I tried to put on a smile and, tell myself that everything would be okay. And when I arrived at school, my worst dreams came to life. I felt as though I was an outcast. All the kids in my school were white, only about one or two of color. And kids looked down upon me and staring at me everywhere I walked. And something that really stuck to me, though, was how they were looking at me. I had glasses at the time, and my hair was in a tight ponytail, and I could just immediately tell that I really stood out amongst everyone else. Everyone had edgy clothing, no glasses, all the girls had her hair down, and it really made me feel like an outlier. I felt scared and terrified, and what was worse is that I had no one to talk to, no one to go to. And it was quite honestly the worst feeling ever. And because I lived in Singapore for quite a while, I had a Singaporean accent. So the American way of speaking sounded very foreign and slurred to me. And it was very hard for me to kind of take the words that they were saying and, to really understand what they were saying. And so it was really hard for me to communicate to the people that I wanted to communicate with, especially my teachers. And I remember going to and from school, crying and locking my door so my parents would wake me up for the next day. And I always went in and out of school with just a hot-headed temper. But just on the first day, though, I had enough and I wanted to move back to my comfort home in Singapore. Now, unfortunately, my parents thought otherwise. They wanted my first day or first couple days, they wanted that experience to be a learning lesson, something that I was sort of gain value from. You know that infamous line that, parents say, you will know when I'm right once you get older. But, of course, I never understood what they meant when I was that age. I sincerely and genuinely thought that they did not give a single crap about my feelings and concerns. Now, don't get me wrong, I tried blending in, I wore those bright, edgy shirts. I spent 30 minutes choosing an outfit, which, by the way, is something I never even think about doing when I lived in Singapore. But, especially as a third grader, And I tried so hard to make sure that I was conforming with society, that I was assimilating with everyone, that I blended in properly. So no one would just look at me weird and, look down upon me like that. And in California, I really just had to overthink every single decision that I'd make and how I would get perceived from others. So, I started joining clubs, getting involved, solely for the fact to blend in with others, even if that meant that, I was doing the clubs that didn't make me happy. And, I felt like I just changed everything I didn't want to change about myself. And I pretended to be this version that I never wanted to become. And so I wanted so badly not to fit into the stereotype of a brown foreign girl. And I deferred from my ethnicity as much as possible. I copied the way kids in my school talk, walk, dress, and behave. Now, this heavily impacted my whole relationship with my family and my siblings. And every time I'd arrive home from school, instead of, saying my usual, how are you, how's everything, and highs and hellos to my family, and, talk about my day as I did in Singapore, I just walked right past them and I would just go straight into my room. Or stomp straight to my room is what I mean. And I wouldn't even bother to eat with my family at the dinner table. And instead I just took my food and ate in my own room. And so I disassociated myself with my family as much as possible. And not only that, I had to go to a place where, first of all, I wasn't who I am. I wasn't my true self. Then disassociated with my family. So all that weight on my shoulders just was more heavier and heavier and heavier. And I continuously went to school that I felt like I didn't belong, that I felt like I had to put so much effort into making myself blend in like the others, despite changing my whole personality to conform to society. And so overall, this was a huge, huge up and down, most crazy roller coaster journey of self-awareness. I realized that the first step of solving a bad trait or a bad habit is to first realize it, to first be aware of it, and to take the tiny signals seriously. For me, I realized that I was, doing something bad to my family and to myself when my brother stopped hanging out with me, or stopped asking me to go to the park. And I've realized that it's so, so incredibly important to stick out with your family and to talk to them, to have trustworthy people to talk to when you're feeling stressed or feeling weight on your shoulders, and to let out those emotions in a very healthy manner. And I realized that every single person has problems and conflicts, and some are going through big conflicts, some people are going through small conflicts. But for me, my conflict was, change and moving halfway across the world. And it was just way too late when I realized, all the sources that I had, my family, and how I was so happy to have someone to talk to, how privileged I was to have someone to talk to about my life and about my stressors. And, to talk to that with my parents. And I realized that, having that great privilege would help me prevent shortcomings and live a more happier and satisfactory life by opening up to them. And I learned that opening up my emotions, how I felt about school or anything else, to my family and, to myself, really just lifted up all that weird weight of just came off my shoulders. And I realized that creating healthy coping mechanisms is also just as important. Since change can be just incredibly stressful at times, it's crucial to take care of your mental and social and emotional health. And, there's a plethora of strategies that work for different people. But for me, right now, some great coping mechanisms are, biking, going out for a walk, painting. It just really helps you, take a deep breath and reflect on your life and yourself. And I realized there's always, what people always miss is that there's always a way to bounce back from change. Because the only thing constant in life is change. Without it, our lives would be so dull and so concealing and so boring. Let's say you're playing a game, right? Would you rather play a app game that's just has the easiest levels in the world, just, a slope or a line? Or would you rather play a game that has obstacles, has challenges, right? Because that's what makes it fun. That's what makes it exciting, because you don't know what's going to happen next. And that's just a great way to sum up life. And, there's good change and there's so-called bad change. And I believe bad change isn't as widely talked about as good change is, because bad change is something that we have to actually put an effort into in order to turn that bad change, so-called, into good change. And so we have to adapt to our circumstances consistently because of change, or else we'll just lose ourselves and fall behind. And it's just so vital to adapt to change and to adapt to any obstacles and challenges that come through your life. And the sooner the better. And many of us, of course, have different coping mechanisms to adapt to change, but it's important that you do have some sort of healthy coping mechanism. And, whether that be, talking to a close friend, meditating, just reflecting on life, it's always important to be open-minded and to take advantages of the positive column in any sort of change that you're experiencing, big or small. Thank you.